All right, terrific. Welcome. We have a very exciting fireside chat. My name is Kelly Hogue. I'm with Stackline. We are a retail, intelligence, and connected commerce platform. Lead our advertising products at Stackline. With me today is David Lesser from OLIPOP. So to kick things off, we'll start off with, we've all drank Coke and Pepsi growing up, still do today. Tell us about OLIPOP. Tell us about your role. What is it?
Great to be here. Excited to chat to you all. OLIPOP is essentially a healthy soda. We have tried to make a product that really meets consumers where they are, understands what soda is about, which is fun and connection and delicious flavors and fun packaging. But we broke one rule, and we broke it pretty hard, and that is the ingredients. So instead of having 40 grams of sugar and artificial preservatives, our product has 8 different plant-based ingredients to support digestive health, 9 grams of dietary fiber, and only 2 to 5 grams of sugar. So we take the science really seriously. We've done trials with Purdue and Baylor Medical College to understand specifically what our product's doing and ensure that the claims that we're making actually, that's what's happening when you're drinking a can of OLIPOP.
You have a fascinating background. Spent time on the corporate side at Diageo globally. Tell us a little bit about your backstory and how you got to this point.
Yeah, so I had a corporate career for about 10 years. I started in London with Diageo and moved to Sydney and then Sao Paulo. And my time there was kind of split between brand marketing. So I had the chance to work on some of the global brands like Smirnoff and Johnnie Walker. And then about half of the time I was doing product innovation. So I don't know if anybody works in product innovation here. Hopefully you got a better success rate than I had. I think we, 90% failure rate or something on the products that we launched. But there's only so many ways that a consumer goods product can fail, I think. And so after you've launched about 10, 15, you start to kind of see the patterns. So that was actually very helpful learning, for going into what I did next in an entrepreneurial venture. And so I moved from Sao Paulo to San Francisco very naively. I'd never been to San Francisco before. I just decided that I wanted to do my own thing. And San Francisco seemed sort of entrepreneurial, and I told my boss at Diageo I was leaving, and she said, well, if your mind's made up, you might want to speak to this guy. He's looking for a business partner. And that turned out to be my co-founder, Ben. So this is our second venture. We had a prior venture called Obi, which was in a similar space, real version 1.0. And yeah, I was super inspired when I first met him. It was a very different type of person than I'd worked with before. And we met at a coffee shop in Palo Alto. We spoke for a few hours, and I got back, and I think I actually had a job offer at the time for like a consulting firm or some innovation consulting firm. And my wife was quite excited because we were about to get married and we could meet up for lunch in San Francisco, and we'd both be earning for the first time. And I got back from this meeting and she went, oh shit, you're going to do this thing with this guy, aren't you? And I said, yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting, and don't worry about it. We'll get it funded in a few months. It'll be fine. And a year later, we got some funding together. So yeah, that first kind of 3 years was pretty painful. I had a lot of learning, a lot of personal growth, and we got a modest exit, and then spent 2 years kind of reformulating to launch OLIPOP.
So it's been a journey.
It has, yeah. I think, often I would say that entrepreneurship is much a kind of personal journey as it is a professional one. So I've certainly learned a lot about myself. I had my ego put in check on plenty of occasions. I think most of the lessons I've learned really have been through humility. But yeah, it's been challenging and fun and rewarding and all of those things, yeah.
So we have a lot of marketers in the room, a lot of folks who are at larger companies. Was there, when we think about entrepreneurship, for you, looking back, was there a specific moment when you started to turn your sights to going the startup route, going to entrepreneurship, and making that decision?
It was something I was always interested in. I grew up in the northwest of England, just outside Liverpool, and my family's actually from Scotland. My grandfather grew up in Dundee, sort of quite a working class family, and he had his own business. It was in haulage, which is like trucks, and they would sand dredging was the other part of the business. It was about as unglamorous as you can get. I actually have a picture of one of his trucks on the wall by my desk. I remember going up to the garage where he had his trucks when I was younger, and he'd kind of be fixing them and running the business. And when I think I'm having a hard day with my venture-backed startup, I look at that and I'm like, oh, okay. I think that's probably a harder road, dredging sand out of the River Tay in Dundee in the winter. But I love that sense of independence. I don't really like being told what to do. So I found at some point I just had to say to myself, look, if you think you're so smart, go and try this yourself, and careful what you wish for. It was a very difficult kind of first few years for sure.
So the soda category, when we think about defining the soda category, Coke and Pepsi come back to mind. For me, oddly enough, I have not had a Diet Coke or any soda in, I think, 8 years. I was drinking way too many. Switched over. Now I like kombucha. That was an acquired taste. I know that's more of a probiotic. Tell us about how OLIPOP is reinventing a portion of the soda category.
Yeah, it's interesting because soda hasn't really had any disruption for over 40 years since Coke launched Diet Coke in 1981, I think it was. And that was, if you look back historically, that was a huge thing. There was like a bunch of research done behind that. Getting a product to taste sweet without sugar in it was a massive, sort of research effort behind that. And then everything for the kind of subsequent 4 decades really been iterations on non-nutritive sweeteners. So Coke Zero, Pepsi Max. So this is the first time the category's really been disrupted. It's had an equally Herculean effort in terms of the research that's gone behind it, that largely been put in by my co-founder Ben. And when we were launching the product, we looked at, I was pretty interested in brands like OLIPOP and Beyond Meat and Seedlip in non-alc spirits. These were brands that really understood the categories that they were in, as I saw it anyway. OLIPOP, for example, not the first low-calorie ice cream, but probably the first one to understand that ice cream is about indulgence. And so if you don't do indulgence, it doesn't matter if you've got 3 calories or 3,000, people are not gonna eat it. So even telling people to eat to the bottom of the tub, they actually outdid mainstream ice cream brands in that respect. So for us, it was really important to understand the category that we were in and to behave like a soda. So that meant refreshment and fun. We actually did a pop-up in our first full year in business in LA, Grand Central Market. And there's different ways you can look at that brief, and we could have said, okay, here's an opportunity to educate around the microbiome and prebiotics. But instead we said, look, this just has to be a fun experience. That's what we want people to, people kind of know this is healthy. Investors would ask us at the beginning, how are you going to educate people around prebiotics and this type of thing? And, our answer was, we're not, basically. People don't need to understand the depths of the research that we've done behind it to buy into it. Most people do get pretty quickly. They're like, this isn't Coke. This is something that's better for me. The next bar is what does it taste like? And then, emotionally, how does it resonate, essentially? So I think that was fairly disruptive what we did there. There wasn't a lot of people doing that at the time in the natural products industry. You'd talk about your founder's story or the farm it was grown on or a special ingredient, and we didn't talk about any of that. We were doing ice cream floats and that type of thing. So that's been really critical for us in sort of building out the concept.
with such a focus on health and wellness and the academic research, but not necessarily trying to inspire as much awareness around that particular piece of it. There's more to the business too. There is a mission behind it. Can you tell everyone a little bit more around, how you view a mission-driven business, and how does that play into what you and Ben are creating at OLIPOP?
Yeah, I think towards the end of my time at Diageo, I was working in innovation, and we were trying to kind of bolt on mission to, like a vodka brand or something. And, it's kind of tricky. You find yourself in a bit of a pickle with the thing as you go, because it kind of misaligns with your commercial efforts, on occasion. What I found really interesting when I met Ben is he was a guy who, it really stemmed from his teenage years. He had quite a challenging childhood. He was eating the standard American diet, was overweight. I think when he was about 16, he just said, look, my life is not going in a good direction. I've got to make a change. And so he got a job, started buying himself better food. He's got a funny story. He was telling me about how he was eating kale at the back of his class. And he said he felt like he was high because he'd never eaten food that nutritious before. It's kind of interesting. And he lost weight, but he also saw real cognitive benefits, like his mental clarity improved, which he wasn't really expecting. And he became really interested in the gut microbiome, gut-brain connection. He actually dropped out of college to teach himself microbiology. When I'm listening to this story, I'm like, this is the guy who's, this is going to be a great story, like Steve Jobs, like out of the garage or something. I'm like, this guy's going to be a great entrepreneur. So, he had a mentor who was a civil rights activist. He won a Supreme Court case by himself. It was one of this fascinating journey. But really his goal was like, how do I take the benefits that I've seen from digestive health to a broader audience? He was growing up just outside of Santa Cruz and could see how zealous people were about kombucha, but also understood that for every one person that liked it, there was 10 that didn't. And so how can I mainstream this? And in his sort of simple line of logic, it was, well, what if I made it taste like soda? People like soda. That's a big category. And so there's kind of a huge, formulation effort behind that to make, the product tastes amazing. I still don't know how he does it. It's interesting listening to him talking about, how he formulates and creates layers in the product and, creates the mouthfeel that you're looking for from a soda. And it's done from a real place of empathy because, like our strawberry vanilla, which is one of our top selling flavors, is designed off of strawberry cream saver that Ben used to eat when he was growing up. So this isn't, somebody eating granola in their, in the woods in Santa Cruz kind of creating this. This is a guy that, ate a lot of junk food and things, like drank a lot of soda, and he's like, look, I get it. This, so our approach is, not to be condescending to our consumer base, but say, look, we understand, like, this stuff is addictive, it's delicious, it's fun, it's accessible, it's cheap. We like soda too, try this one instead. So, for us, the mission really is the product. We've done the research to make sure that it functions in the right way, that we're essentially delivering a higher nutritional supplement in a soda. Like, we could have put it in anything, but soda is kind of the perfect Trojan horse. And as we get into that, as I approach it as a marketer, it's an extremely interesting category to work with. People feel so passionately about soda. It's quite mind-blowing to me, the testimonials that we get. We recently did a pop-up in Columbus in Ohio, and people could try the product for the first time and then write down what their favorite flavor is and what memory it brings up. And, people are talking about going fishing with their granddad or sitting on the porch with their mom, or, these are kind of really emotive responses that you don't get in a lot of categories that I hadn't, even seen in the alcohol categories. So, so for us, just scaling the thing is part of the mission. And then, the impact that we have on the communities around us is important too. So we're kind of close to submitting our B Corp certification as well, just to ensure that as we scale, it's, we're not using like a ton of plastic, and we're sticking to aluminum as a delivery mechanism and that type of thing as well.
over the past couple of years, we've seen incredible shifts in consumer behavior, shopping behavior, new channels. Going back to thinking about how you're continuing to inspire awareness of OLIPOP around health and wellness, but also within the soda category. Are you thinking about the consumer differently today than you were a couple years ago?
Not too differently, I would say. Certainly when we started 10 years ago with our first venture, Obi, the market was not what it is now. So, the concerns around sugar, I'm sure you guys have seen the same thing, have just kind of increased. The pandemic was interesting in our observation anyway, because it seemed like there's increased concerns around health, the focus there, but also there was just a desire for comfort. Like you saw a lot of, I think, Coke sales increased, and you guys probably would have seen it in the data around some of your products as well, that life was getting very complicated, and people were like, just give me the Doritos or whatever it is. It's like, I just, everything's kind of really hard right now. So, again, that's always been our approach. Like, we've not done crazy flavors, and it was when we started, investors were telling us to do this. They said, you guys are crazy. Soda is not healthy. Nobody's going to buy this. It's a dying category. And we looked at it and we're like, I don't know. It's like a $40 billion category. Kombucha is about $1 billion. Sparkling water was at $4 billion or something. So we're like, look, we think this is a huge opportunity. We don't think people hate root beer. We just don't think they want to drink 40 to 70 grams of sugar. That's a problem. So if we can make it taste like root beer, we can give them all the nostalgia and the comfort, and don't try and change that, but just change the ingredients. We think, we're going to be in a really good place, and we can have a sort of delivery mechanism that gets under people's defenses and, gives them access to something that's really going to benefit their health. So what was surprising to me, we've done a lot of research in the last 12 months on the soda category, the category that we've created in functional soda. And, I'd say one of the more surprising discoveries there was that around 75% of consumers are looking to modulate for their health in some way or other. They're like cutting something out, or they're like reducing consumption of something, or they're changing what they're eating. So, ultimately, I think with OLIPOP, if you don't care about sugar or digestive health, you're probably not going to buy this product, because, a can of Coke tastes pretty good. I like it. I remember drinking Coke, out of the vending machine at lunchtime at school after I'd been playing soccer at lunch. I mean, it was like liquid gold, so got great memories around it. And it's cheap. It's a lot cheaper than OLIPOP because of the ingredients that we use. So the only reason you'd switch is if you have some focus on health. And I think a surprising majority of consumers now do. Certainly that's what we found.
I'm curious, is there an appeal for parents with children for something like OLIPOP?
I think we're seeing it from everybody, I mean, there was, as I say, we get incredible amount of testimonials. One of the ones, it's, for me, I love getting up each day with having some purpose in what I'm doing, and knowing that my efforts are kind of, creating something meaningful out in the world. And, there was a lady that messaged us a few months back, and unfortunately her grandmother was in the latter stages of cancer, and she really wasn't able to eat much at all or drink much. One of the things she could drink was a root beer OLIPOP. And so that was like the highlight of her day, something she was able to enjoy. They were all able to, share that moment together as a family. And, she just messaged us. Unfortunately, the lady passed away. And, she said, I just want to thank you guys for creating this. We're here drinking an OLIPOP together and, remembering her and remembering those moments. And, I think that's really important. It shouldn't be underestimated. It's a reason people buy into packaged goods. It's our memories and it's emotion, and it's sort of those occasions we share together. It's what food and beverage is about. So, we don't want to get kind of too serious with it. we'll do the serious work behind the scenes and make sure that, you know, people can have I mean, one of the things we did in research was say, what do we call this? And we proposed healthy soda, and consumers were like, please do not call this healthy soda. I do not want to be drinking a healthy soda. Just, you know, give me like root beer and, you know, and by all means make it good for me. That's great, but don't shove that in my face. It's not fun. You know, it's not what I want to be doing. So, so yeah, we found it's solving a need for a lot of people, and, you know, it's played out in the data. We're now, you know, north of 100 million revenue brand within 4 years of launch. And that's really the rate of sales that we've seen is insane in the stores. And we haven't really marketed it that much. Like, we don't have big marketing budgets, but I think we just found this product market fit where consumers are like, hey, this tastes good, it fills a need. You know, it solves for that dilemma of often again, through the research, we found consumers are in this dilemma when they're choosing. It's either like, do I eat the thing now that's unhealthy and, you know, get the short-term reward and pay the long-term pain, or do I eat the salad now and it's not that fun, but I know long-term is good for my health? And with OLIPOP, we're kind of solving for that dilemma, and we see that consumers really appreciate that.
With your marketing investments, how are you thinking about modern consumer engagement? How are you thinking about omni-channel? Are you looking at things by channel, or is it agnostic? How does that come into play when you as co-founder put on your marketing hat and start thinking about where do we want to make our bets?
Yeah, I wouldn't say we're agnostic to channel, but the most important thing is the idea, I would say. Yeah, I think Liquid Death is a really good example of this. You know, I was chatting to Mike Cesario there a couple of weeks ago, and their setup, I mean, they've created an agency, essentially. If they weren't selling water, they could just be doing marketing for people, I think. You know, our setup is similar to a degree. We've set up a kind of agency structure inside our marketing team, and, you know, the goal is to just create big, sticky ideas. And, you know, when you don't have a large media budget, you know, Liquid Death have recognized this as well. You know, you have to rely on the stickiness of the idea. We simply don't have an alternative because we can't outspend Coke or Pepsi.
Would you say Coke and Pepsi are the main competition still for you?
Yeah, we're coming for them for sure. So. No, you know, soda category, absolutely. We're just looking to take soda occasions. There's so many of them. You know, we're merchandised right now in like the digestive health set. And it was interesting from a category perspective when we launched, because, you know, we looked at the sets that we wanted to be in, and, you know, there's kombucha in there, but then there's also, you know, Kavita, which isn't a kombucha, and there's drinking vinegars, and, you know, they're kind of, retailers are calling it a kombucha section, but really the common theme was supports digestive health. And, you know, it's interesting, the perimeter stores, you know, food is medicine now, and consumers are shopping a little bit more that way. And we went to retailers and said, look, if you go to CVS or Walgreens and you go to the digestive health section, you're going to find prebiotics and fiber merchandised pretty much 50-50 next to probiotics. If you look at your digestive health set, you're missing half the category. We have a solution for you. And that allowed us to get really rapid distribution. Retailers bought into that quickly. And then our velocities have outstripped kombucha very quickly. Now, I'd like to say it's because of the genius of our marketing, but I think a big part of it is just the occasion base you're going after. There are way more soda occasions than there are kombucha occasions. And so that's what we're finding. I mean, you know, it's playing out in the data. You know, I think GT's is the only brand often that is outselling us now in those sets. And some of them, like Walmart and Target, we've only been in there for kind of 12 months or so.
It's worth noting, David and I both flew in from Atlanta. And so when he first told me he recently relocated to Atlanta, I thought it was a little suspect, doing some competitive intel on Coca-Cola.
Driving my OLIPOP truck around Atlanta. The holidays are coming.
All right, so you're reinventing the category. You're a category disruptor. You learn from some of the others who are doing similar things, whether it's a Beyond Meat or Liquid Death. What issues do category disruptor brands face? And what has been most prevalent for you and Ben, particularly over the past couple of years?
Yeah, I think it's a very hard road. And, there's certain steps that kind of take you there, I think. And that's one of the things that I learned through the time I spent in innovation. We had real ambition at times to kind of disrupt. And you've got to observe the macro environment basically, because there's no amount of spend can really. I remember just trying to sell, blue vodka over ice in the UK, and it just wasn't consumer behavior, and we spent a lot of money trying to convince people to do this, and it didn't work. And so, as I was looking at the category and particularly how it's developed, there's a number of things that are kind of conflating. So one is, the growth of kombucha not only creates a space in the store, like if we had to go to, Walmart even, or even Whole Foods and say, hey, can you create space for this? That's 5 years of work right there. Like GTs have done that for us, Health Aid, Kavita. We had a set to go into that people were already shopping. They already understood that there's fizzy drinks in there that support digestive health. Kombucha itself is like a kind of, it's edging towards that, right? It's like, you said you gave up soda and you went to kombucha. It's not a bad alternative. Actually, some of them quite high in sugar, 15, 20 grams, got the vinegar taste, the kind of, the research behind the claims, like a little suspect at times. So it's not bad, but, you can, you can build on that, right? You iterate. And that's how, in my mind, the best innovation works. It's not kind of a lightning bolt, but it's sort of, you edge towards it. And we were building on the shoulders of giants. The work the GTs did in building that category was immense, and concerns around sugar and this type of thing kind of lead you in. So I think when we tried it 10 years ago, it was maybe too early. And when we tried it 4 years ago, I think the timing was right.
Admittedly, OLIPOP is now on my Instacart shopping list for our next order, because David got me thinking about my affinity to kombucha, and I'm rethinking that a little bit. Expansion. Where are you thinking about expansion? Is it with additional flavors? Is it into new markets? Tell us about what the roadmap looks like.
Yeah, we'll definitely launch some new flavors. Ben as co-founder formulator, that's a big competitive advantage for us. We launched nationally in Target and Walmart this year, which was huge. We haven't really touched drug or convenience channels yet. Club, we haven't touched too much either. So they're kind of like obvious areas in the future. And I think there's a lot more rate of sale potential as well. Out of interest, who had previously heard of OLIPOP in the room before? Yeah, so like half maybe. So, and now you're all going to be drinking OLIPOP, right? So, I think as kind of, as good as the rate of sale is, it's still climbing in all these stores. Like we've only been in Walmart for 1 year, and I think we have a new brand platform that we're going to be launching next year around Real Love, hopefully with the Camila Cabello supporting that. We recently took investment from a range of other people like Bruno Mars, which is really interesting to think about as well. So, that's how Coke and Pepsi have done it in the past. It's sort of entering into popular culture. I think the genius of Coke as well, it's like, it's summertime and you're like, it's kind of time for a Coke, right? It's like, get the Coke out of the cooler and the ice, and then it's the holidays and you're like, kind of time for a Coke again, right? Polar bears and stuff. And, so our challenge is really to insert ourselves top of mind for consumers. And, I think actually we're getting back to the heart of soda, maybe in a way that some of those legacy brands have vacated. And so we're not in a lot of ways, in some ways we're modernizing, but equally in a lot of ways we're just getting back to the things that people love about the category. We just changed the product.
We saw a lot of hand raisers. Tell us, what is your favorite OLIPOP flavor?
Well, I did like a lot the cola, just because that's what I grew up drinking. Root beer is a very weird thing to me. Our kids drink it, which amazes me, because there's other stuff that they won't drink or eat that I'm like, this tastes way better than a root beer, surely. But and the idea of putting ice cream in stuff is like super weird. But so the cola, yeah, definitely was my favorite. But then there's another drink, a soda in the UK called Appletiser, which I love, and used to drink at, like, I don't know, special occasions like Christmas and things. And so I'd been harassing Ben for years to make an apple soda, and I actually shipped him Appletiser from the UK to his door so he could try it. And he finally made one, the Apple Crisp, that we've launched now as a seasonal, and that is very good. So that's my favorite right now.
That's the one I was looking for. I caught that story on LinkedIn. We have another minute or two, and I wanted to open it for questions.
Hi, I'm Ashley Dorsey. I'm on our new business ventures team here at Nestle. And so working in innovation, how do you kind of take that 90% failure rate and use it to propel the momentum and take those learnings and not let the 90% failure be the story, but make you better at the innovation process for the next one, so you can kind of have that better chance at the 10%?
Well, congratulations. You got some free learning here if you're ever going to start your own business. It was very helpful. Thank you, Diageo, for the... yeah, no, I think it's a difficult one, honestly. There was a mindset for me to get out of it. It helped being in California. I think California, generally with a startup culture there, like, when our first business essentially failed, people would just, like, in England, they would have been like, oh my God, this is awful, right? What are you going to do now? Like, your life is over, right? Whereas in California, they're like, what's next? Surely you're going to take these learnings and do something else. There's a quote I gave, actually, a talk I was doing at our pop-up in Columbus that Ed, who's here today, liked, which was, the way I look at it, you're either succeeding or you're learning. Essentially, it's like one of the two, right? So, you don't want to keep repeating the same mistake. You've got to do the self-reflection and learning, but yeah, I think we wouldn't be here where we are now without Obi. People are like, oh my God, this is so quick. You guys have done this in 4 years. We look at it as 10 years, because everything we learned on Obi, like, we learned about flavors, we learned don't put it in a glass bowl, put it in a can. We changed, there's a lot of stuff we changed as we went. So, it's hard to have the patience for that. Yeah, there's no silver bullet, but you don't get that any other way, I don't think. There's no lightning bolt moment. We didn't suddenly come up with this thing. We've been working on it for a long time.
One more question.
Hi, I just wanted to build on your point about more of a challenger brand and going against the larger ones. How have you tapped into influencers or the creator community to do so?
Yeah, we've done, well, funny story. Initially, we were very proud of saying, like, we never pay influencers, and we thought we were kind of really awesome for doing that. And then we realized that was a very stupid idea. And then we started paying people to promote it. We had to kind of duck and weave a little bit on things. So, there's a period where kind of the swipe up, was working super effectively until it wasn't. And I think a lot of agility in that space has been important. So what we've learned is just when the going's hot, you just, like, double down on it really hard. Now we're getting to a point where we have some, like, very large celebrities in the mix, and So we're just getting them to send stuff out basically. And what they're saying is like, look, your product's sticky enough that we'll just need to get this in people's hands and then we'll talk about it. That isn't the case for every product. The idea of like, hey, you can have a soda and it's actually good for you is something that people want to talk about. So that kind of works for us. But what we found is it's an ever-changing landscape, and a bit of humility helps as well, because we got it wrong a few times too.
I think there was one more quick question. We'll do one more quick question over there. I saw your hand go down, and you said one, and you look so disappointed that.
Actually, said a bad word. Hello. Hi. Joey, I work on the Starbucks by Nespresso team over in Seattle. So my question is, when you think about functional, is gut health like your swim lane, or are you interested in looking at other areas like that, maybe like a water like Recess is exploring? Just curious how you stay in the swim lane, if that is the swim lane, and how you look at innovation that way.
It's a really good question. So for context, my co-founder, Ben, is an insane person, and he is the kind of guy that wakes up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat wondering what the meaning of life is. So he kind of gets up every day with that level of intensity, which is very helpful for an entrepreneur. It's not so good for your nervous system, but I feel very fortunate to have him as a partner. And so, he's just looking for the highest leverage point, right? So he was like, look, the highest leverage point is gut health. That is what changed the trajectory of his life. And he's like, this, you're going to focus on one thing. This is the thing. Now, there's actually a lot of complexity in the formulation. So some of the things like the plant mucoescence and stuff are actually designed to rebuild mucosal membrane in your gut. I mean, these are things we would never talk about. But you talk to Ben one-on-one, it's crazy. Like when he talks to someone, they're like, I'm drinking this thing for the rest of my life. We have to find a way to bottle that. But we've never kind of followed a trend, So when we started out, people, we were just looking for where is the science going on this? And the science was, the trend was probiotics, but the science was prebiotics and fiber. And speaking to, leading academics like Sonnenberg at Stanford, looking at hunter-gatherer tribes, some of which still live in parts of Africa and Asia today, they were saying there's two main differences in the diet. One is quantity of fiber. They consume about 200 grams a day versus our 15. The second is nutrient diversity. They consume about 1,400 different types of food in a year. We get 200 in the West if we're lucky. And so that has led to, by some estimates, decline by about 50% in the last 100 years in the complexity and diversity of our gut microbiome. And I'm sure in this room, a lot of you will be familiar with, a lot of modern Western illness comes from issues within the gut, inflammation, immune response. You solve for that, you're solving for a lot of things. So we're not necessarily tied to like prebiotics per se, whatever. We're just looking for the highest leverage solution. So we might change the formulation, but what we're unlikely to do, like we're going very deep in this. We're about to go into human clinical trials now and stuff as well. So, launching, if, I don't know, acai berry becomes a trend or something, like it's not something we would be jumping on, because our brand is anchored in, where can we find the highest leverage point for human health? How can we be most helpful?
Awesome. Thank you very much.